Okay, I think we can get started. Most of us are here. So Chuck, why don't you get us going?
All right, thanks, Ben. I want to welcome everyone to the first stakeholder involvement group meeting for the old McHenry Road Crossings Improvement Project. I am Chuck Gleason. I'm with Lake County Division of Transportation Project Manager. We want to thank you for participating in the stakeholder group, and we are aware that everyone has busy schedules and appreciate you taking the time out of these schedules for these meetings that we're having today and upcoming meetings in the next year. We have a lot of information to go over this afternoon, including a couple of breakout sessions. At this time, I would like to turn the meeting over to our consultant team leader, Matt Smith, who will begin the presentation. Matt?
Thank you, Chuck. All right, hold on a second. All right, good afternoon. My name is Matt Smith, and I'm from Transsystems Corporation, and I'm the consultant project manager working with the Lake County Division of Transportation on the Old McHenry Crossing study. We do have a full agenda today, and we're excited to get started working with this group. We will have a small 5-minute break in about an hour after we complete our first interactive workshop about the virtual forum. Our focus today is to educate you on our process and get your feedback on the issues and needs along both Old McHenry and Quentin Road. Next slide. Our team is working hand in hand with Lake County, the Illinois Department of Transportation, and the Federal Highway Administration on this study. And besides Transsystems, you'll hear today from representatives from Christopher B. Burke Engineering and Tesca Associates. Please note the role of the stakeholder involvement group is advisory. Final decisions on the project will be made by the Lake County Division of Transportation with approval authority from the Illinois Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Administration. We plan to use you as our stakeholder involvement group, or our SIG, to provide input throughout the decision-making process. Next slide. This is the group assembled here today that will be part of our meeting. Kevin and Chuck Gleason are both from the Lake County Division of Transportation, and the rest of the men and women shown here on the slide are part of our project team, and you'll all be meeting the rest of this group throughout the presentation today. Next slide. So this is our first test of everybody's Zoom skills. And what I'd like to do is hopefully spend about 5 minutes to have the group introduce each other. And what I'd like to do is have each of you share your screen when I call your name and introduce yourself to the group. Basically just let us know who you are, your name, and what organization or neighborhood that you're representing. And I'll be calling on the group just like an alphabetical listing back in the grade school days. So before we begin with Ms. Jill Anderson, I did want to note that we've invited 27 people were selected based on interest we received during the virtual forum to join the SIG, and then combined also with some important property owners within the project limits that we contacted directly. And there will be a few people, I think about 8 or 9 on this list who aren't with us today. For example, like Mr. Bob Atwater from Apex Landscaping, and then a few others. So we're still hopeful that these people will still be a part of the SIG, but they aren't with us today either due to a conflict or they haven't confirmed their interest yet. So with that, I'd like to start with Jill Anderson. Oh, and don't forget to unmute yourself too. So we're really testing the Zoom skills as far as camera and microphone.
Hi, I'm Jill Anderson. I'm the Interim Executive Director at the Foglio YMCA. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, Jill. That's perfect. Okay, Mr. Michael Brown.
Good afternoon. Mike Brown with the Village of Lake Zurich. I'm the Director of Public Works. Happy to be here.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, we have our first substitute. So Joe Christofferson from Lake Zurich Fire Department wasn't able to be here today, so we have John Kelly.
Hi, John, Lake Zurich Fire, just filling in. Give a report.
Thanks, John. Okay, next on my list is Roberto Diaz.
Hi, Bob Diaz, resident in Hawthorne Woods. I live down the block from the Village Hall.
Would you prefer to be called Bob then?
Yeah, that actually, yes, thank you.
All right. Okay, Doug Duvall. I know I saw Doug before. Doug, if you're speaking, we are not hearing you. Doug, I see you, but I do not hear you. I think you're muted. We'll move on. Okay. Okay, Greg Dwyle. Wait, Doug, I think you unmuted yourself.
All right.
Yes.
Doug Duval, St. Matthew Lutheran Church. I'm the administrator for both of the facilities here.
Thanks, Doug. Okay, Greg. Greg, you're on mute as well.
This is Greg DeWiel, Chairman of the Forest Lake Community Association.
Thank you. Okay, Erica Frabel.
Hi, good afternoon. Erica Frabel, I'm the Director of Public Works, Village Engineer for Hawthorne Woods.
All right, Howard Goodman.
Hi, everybody. I'm the Executive Director of the TMA, which is the Transit Management Association of Lake Cook, which helps commuters get to work.
Thanks for joining us today. Michael Gressick.
Hey everyone, my name is Mike Gressick. I'm not affiliated with any organization. I am a resident of Copperfield. My home does border or run parallel to Old McHenry Road for about 250 feet. So I'm right down the street from Folkley. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Mr. Jim Harriman.
Hello, this is Jim Harriman. I'm with Quentin Road Baptist Church.
Thanks, Jim. It's good for us, like finally putting faces to some of these names. All right, Mr. Bill Koch.
I'm here. I found the two buttons.
All right.
And it's Koch, like duck. And
Thank you.
I own Hawthorne Gardens.
Thanks. Nice to meet you. Okay, next, Dr. Philip Lane.
Hi, Dr. Lane here. I live east of Quentin Road on Old Barn Lane.
All right, thank you. Mr. Mark Linhart.
I'm Mark Linhart. I live in Killdeer.
Thanks, Mark. Mr. Ryan May.
Hey everybody, Ryan May. I live in White Birch Lakes, right on the corner, the north west corner of Fairfield and Old McHenry Road.
Thanks, Ryan. Dr. Dean Romano.
Yes, Assistant Superintendent for Business Operations here at Lake Zurich Community School District 95.
Thanks for joining us. This is a tough last name for me. I'm going to say Mrs. Patrice, last name that starts with an R.
That's fine. My name is Patrice Ronkowski. I live on Heather Lane, which is, and our home backs up to St. Matthews from the back, and I'm also a committeeman, and this project would fall within my precinct district.
So that's pronounced Ronkowski?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Nice to meet you too. Okay, Mr. Philip Ruiz. I see your name and I think you're unmuted, but I don't hear you or see you. My microphone is not working. Okay. But the chat button is working, so that's good. Thank you. Next, Mr. Rob Sabo.
Good afternoon. My name is Rob Sabo. I'm a resident of the Wicklow Village subdivision, which is just off of Midlothian, south of Old McHenry. So,
Sabo. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Paul Smith.
Hi, everyone. My name is Paul Smith. I am also a resident of Wicklow Village, living primarily behind the Foglia YMCA. Thanks for the opportunity to be part of the crowd.
You're welcome. And then last, Ms. Kim Wasson.
Hi, I'm Kim Wasson. I own Ford Stride Staples, which is located at the corner of Midlothian and Old McHenry Road.
All right, thank you. I know that took a little bit of time, but it was really helpful to see the faces of these names that we've been looking at for a while, even though we're still in a virtual environment. It's nice to see everybody. I wanted to quickly note that we are considering doing future meetings in person, depending how COVID cases evolve over the next few months. So next slide, Ben's going to cover a couple of housekeeping items with Zoom.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So yeah, once again, great meeting you all. Great being able to put some faces with the names. And just want to thank you again for participating in this stakeholder group. I'm Ben Vanderwall with Transystem, and I'm just going to go through a few logistical items on how this meeting is going to be conducted. You'll see at the top of your screen 2 different view options. We recommend the speaker view during the presentation, and then you can switch back and forth to see which one you like, but then we'll be doing a small group activity, and we suggest doing the gallery view during that time. Please keep yourselves muted, and if you'd like to keep your screen on, that's fine, but you do not have to. You can turn that off if you like. But when you're speaking, obviously we'd like to see your face and remind you to unmute yourself. If you do have any questions, which we 100% expect there will be, or comments, please, we want to hear from you. So we have Alyssa Kidd with us on the call, also with Transsystems, and she's just behind the scenes here helping us organize those questions. So please send your questions directly to Alyssa in the chat box. They can be submitted at any time. And then we also wanted to open up the opportunity for you all to make a public comment or statement if you would like. That would be conducted near the end of the meeting before the Q&A session. If you'd like to make a comment, also please let Alyssa know so that we can have a list of names that we can call on you at the time. Just a few technical issues here with Zoom. I think we're all good. We heard from most of you. So if you do have any audio issues, we just wanted to point out here, the audio settings tool next to the microphone icon. If you just click that little caret, you can get to the audio settings. If you are having audio issues and you can't hear me, then obviously, hopefully you can see the screen. But again, please contact Alyssa if you're having any trouble in any way, and she can help you work through any technical issues. We also wanted to let you know this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the project website for you all to review, and it will be also be available to the public. Last, please be courteous to everyone in the meeting here. The SIG is meant to be a constructive and productive group to help the project team with moving the project forward, and we would really love to get your input and your feedback on this project. So with that, I'll throw it back to Matt.
All right, thanks, Ben. So moving on in the next 15 minutes or so, I'll be presenting an overview of the project and the project development process. Next slide. So the primary objective of our study is to improve safety, traffic operations, and connectivity for motorists, bicyclists, and pedestrians within our study area. Our study area includes over 2 miles of Old McHenry Road from Abbey Glen Drive to Bonnie Lane, and 1.5 miles of Quentin Road from Illinois Route 22 to Old McHenry Road. This area is shown on the orange shading on this map. The project will evaluate the feasibility of a new grade separation for the CN Railroad at Old McHenry Road. If you're not 100% sure what we mean by a grade separation, we mean constructing a bridge where either the road or the railroad will go over the top of or underneath the other. And how did we get here today? So Lake County identified this project in their 2040 transportation plan. And in addition, the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, which is known as CMAP, and they're the regional planning commission for the 7 counties in northeastern Illinois. They identified this location as a priority crossing to be studied. Next slide. So the focus on the project is around the 3 Old McHenry Road intersections with Fairfield Road, Midlothian Road, and Quentin Road. These are 3 closely spaced intersections, all within a half mile. And then right in the middle is the crossing with the CN Railroad. And as we know, when the gates are down, we all observe a mushrooming effect where traffic just tends to back up in all different directions. In case you weren't aware, I wanted to clarify that Old McHenry Road and Quentin Road are Lake County routes, but Midlothian Road is actually under the jurisdiction of the Illinois Department of Transportation. The Quentin Road corridor from Illinois Route 22 to Old McHenry Road is included in our study because of its proximity to Old McHenry and how traffic backups and safety concerns spread out along Quentin Road. The road does also have some of its own safety challenges, many of you know, and it's important to consider this corridor as part of our study. Next slide, please. Our studies will involve detailed environmental studies along both roadways and also along Fairfield and Midlothian. Our team is completing some detailed surveys of wetlands, public lands, historic structures, waterways, and drainage areas. And I'm sure over the last few months, you've seen our workers in the area completing those surveys. Next slide. So getting into a little bit of the project development process, and then right after this section, we'll do a recap of the virtual forum, and then we'll get into our first interactive exercise to hopefully keep you engaged here in the presentation. So projects like this in Illinois, we describe them in 3 phases as shown here on this graphic. We're just getting started with what we're calling our phase 1 study, and it will extend into the fall of 2023. From there, phase 2 involves the preparation of contract plans, and phase 3 is the construction phase. So our current schedule assumes construction starting in 2026, and that is dependent on the availability of funding. Next slide. So here we see a more specific overview of the phase 1 process itself. So we are in our data collection step. And over the next 2 years, we'll be moving our way across this graphic before selecting what we would call a preferred alternative near the end of phase 1. That's kind of our final product from the phase 1 study in combination with a series of reports and other environmental documentation and other studies. And across the bottom, again, public involvement and input from you as our SIG will run throughout this study. We really want your thoughts and your comments and your concerns, and we want you to know how decisions are going to be made. And it's important that you're here with us, and we're really excited to get started. Next slide. So the National Environmental Policy Act from 1970 is our guide for the development of this study. We describe NEPA as an umbrella under which coordination with multiple agencies is managed. The purpose of NEPA is to inform the public and decision makers of how transportation planning decisions are made. In future meetings, you will have an opportunity to provide input on our project's purpose and need, and will also be part of identification and analysis of alternatives. A no-build alternative will be a part of our analysis as well. And all of our work will be based on standards and guidelines established by Lake County and by the Illinois Department of Transportation. This SIG process is one that Lake County has done on many other projects over the last 15 years or so. And this process was developed based on guidance from the Illinois Department of Transportation, based on what's called context-sensitive solutions. And I'm going to touch more on that in a few slides, so we'll circle back on that. So finally, I wanted to just note again here that all of our work is subject to review and approval by the Illinois Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Administration. And I'm sure the group probably has some questions about some of these different things. And again, we do want to discuss those things. So there will be some time at the end of the presentation today to circle back on these and answer some of those questions. So next slide. So in this section, we're going to be talking about our public involvement approach and a summary of what we learned from our virtual public forum. So a few quick more slides from me on the next slide. You did all receive a copy of our stakeholder involvement plan. This is a living document that provides information on how this study will progress over the next 2 years or so. It's our roadmap for the public engagement process. And then I wanted to talk again here about CSS. So CSS is, from a textbook definition, an interdisciplinary project development approach that seeks effective transportation facilities that fit into and reflect the project's surroundings, what we would call its context. So I wanted to kind of describe it in more of a layperson's terms, that I'd say like maybe say 20 years ago, when engineers or planners would start a study like this, all of this analysis and work would be done just in a maybe behind closed doors, identifying a problem, studying alternatives, coming up with preferred alternatives, preparing plans, and maybe right before construction, there would be a public meeting to let everybody know what was planned. What's been happening, what we plan to do here on this project and what CSS is all about is to get input from stakeholders throughout the entire project or process and be involved in that decision-making process. Our goal is that this group, when we do reach the end of the process, understands how we got here, might not agree with everything, but at least understand how we got here and how the decisions were made. Okay, next slide. So this slide shows a representation of our SIG. And I know we all got just a few minutes there to meet everybody, but we're really excited. We feel like we have a good cross-section of people from different organizations, local leadership, businesses, residents, commuters, and even one gentleman, he wasn't able to be here today, but a school bus driver for the Lake Zurich School District. So it's important to us to have a group like this to make sure that we're hearing from a wide range of voices. Okay, next slide. We've noted to you that we do plan to have 5 SIG meetings, either virtually like this or possibly in person. We'll just kind of wait and see how things are going. And your input is very important to the work we're doing. And on the left side of here on the slide, we kind of lay out our schedule for our future SIG meetings. We do plan to meet about every 3 months. We'll be covering a lot of material during this time, and we are really excited and appreciate your participation and involvement throughout. On the next slide, this is an overview of our ground rules for the SIG. We want to stress to the group to be respectful of the thoughts and comments from others as we work to be as collaborative as possible. We also ask as best as you can that you share what you learn here with your friends and neighbors in the area, and in turn bring that information that you hear from them with us. That doesn't have to wait for a SIG meeting to share that information. We are available via email or phone calls, and we do want it to be a collaborative process. And then just a quick reminder or a note here that there won't be any voting for the SIG on particular alternatives. Your role is advisory, but we do want your input on the project development process. But the final decisions will come back to choices made by the Lake County Division of Transportation. So with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Jody Mariano. Jody?
Thank you, Matt. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. My name is Jody Mariano. I am a landscape architect with Tesca Associates, and we are supporting the Trans Systems team with public outreach and landscape architecture on this project. So as many of you probably know, the first public meeting was conducted as a virtual public forum on our project website, which is omxproject.com. And we got the word out a variety of different ways. The residents that live near the corridor received postcard announcements. Hawthorne Woods and Lake Zurich sent announcements on our behalf via their platforms. The Lake County DOT issued announcements. You may have also seen a changeable message board along Old McHenry Road that promoted the website. So although we would have all very much preferred to meet with you in person and the public in person, we did hear we had a lot of good participation listed in the red box here. We had over 3,100 views of the virtual forum and nearly 8,500 views of the project website. Next slide. So the virtual public forum contained 4 stations. There was introductions and project background station. Folks were invited to provide their general comments or geographical comments on an interactive map. And folks were also invited to react to other people's comments. People were invited to volunteer to participate in the project planning, and this is how we connected with you all. And thank you for volunteering. And then lastly, participants were invited to subscribe to the website. We hope you're all subscribed to the website at this point and have received the last posting, which contained a summary of the virtual forum. Next slide. So the mapped comments that we received 220 comments on the interactive map. This slide illustrates some of those comments and reactions that we saw via a thumbs up or thumbs down tool. And we would invite you all to take a closer look at this following the meeting. Some highlights that are worth pointing out. We heard concerns about traffic moving southbound along Fairfield Road, for instance, making left turns onto Old McHenry Road a challenge. We heard support for bike paths at Old McHenry Road and Echo Lake Road. We heard comments about maintaining the country feel of the community, and we understand the Hawthorne Woods tagline of rural by design. It's helpful to hear these types of things reiterated in the community. And then selfishly also as the landscape architect, it's helpful to hear those things as we kind of think further down into aesthetic design, which will come at a much later date. At the next slide, please. This slide shows additional feedback closer to the Quentin Road corridor area. Again, some highlights include desires for intersection and crosswalk enhancements, for instance, near Old McHenry and Lagoon, also near Quentin and Route 22. We heard a lot of strong support for grade separation. We also have heard lots of comments about the railroad, comments about whether the railroad can and should go underneath Old McHenry Road, and could they publish their freight train schedules. All really helpful comments and something that we can certainly discuss as we proceed. Next slide. In addition to the comments we received via the interactive map, we also received 72 general comments. A very high level summary of those comments is here. Comments are grouped by topic and also by the number of times that they were repeated. You can see we heard a lot of concerns, understandably so, about what kind of design and construction impacts would be next to certain institutions and businesses. We heard a lot of general support about a grade separation. We also heard in the next kind of category repeated 4 to 5 times, a lot of desires for better bike and pedestrian facilities. We know that this place is used by automobiles, but there are others that would like to use it for biking and walking as well. There were comments about, whether or not Old McHenry Road and Quentin Road would be widened. I will say that we don't know at this point, as the study is just getting started. There are no plans right now to widen any of those roads. This is the very beginning and we're just now studying that. Concerns, of course, about impacts of the additional railroad traffic. There were questions about what is a grade separation. And then also we heard, a desire to accommodate emergency vehicle access. And of course, we're so happy that the fire department is involved in the SIG. We heard questions about expanding the improvements beyond this study area, and we'll get into that further. Calming traffic was something that was important. We heard comments about, let's just leave this corridor as it is and not make any improvements. And just as Matt said, that is something that is also going to be considered. Comments about reviewing and adjusting signal timing, what came up, and also questions about how the project will be funded, which I believe we've already addressed. Next slide. So we are going to get into the first interactive workshop, which is a large group activity. And typically at this point in a meeting, if we were meeting face to face, we would get up and walk around the room and we'd make comments and use stickers and markers on exhibits and maps. Since we're in a virtual environment, we're going to use an interactive polling tool called Mentimeter. And so this is the reason we've asked you all to bring your smartphones or another device. Why are we doing this activity? So the reason that we're doing this is because it's our opportunity to hear information about what's important to you. Also, it's your opportunity to tell us what's on your mind and to hear from one another. So after this activity, we'll be doing a deeper dive into the breakout groups, and all the inputs that we hear will be documented in the meeting summary and used as the team delves further into planning. So how to use the Mentimeter? It's very simple. We're going to ask you all to keep your screens open, and we're going to ask you to use your smartphone or another device to log into this website that's printed here in orange menti.com. So you can use any browser to go to menti.com. And as you are doing that, I am going to steal the screen and switch to my screen. So bear with me for one moment. Okay, can everybody see my screen? I'm hoping yes. Great, thank you. Okay, so this is the menti.com screen here. At the top of the screen, you'll see the name of the website, menti.com, and it's going to prompt you for a code. And the code is here at the top. It's 39804489. And so I'll give everyone a minute or two to get in. And as you're getting in, maybe if somebody can get in and press a heart, just so I know that it's working. Oh, good. Thank you. So follow along on your phone and keep your eye on the screen. What we're going to do is as people answer questions on their phone, all of the combined results will show up on my screen. And so we can kind of see how, how everybody is responding. I will say if you have a snag with your internet, for instance, and you get kicked out of the phone, you can always log back in. This menti.com and the code will be printed on every one of these slides here on my screen. Okay.
While we're waiting for everybody to get on here, I just wanted to jump in 1 second and acknowledge County Board Member Catherine Sabara is listening in. I just wanted to acknowledge her presence here, and just another reminder that this meeting is being recorded and will be available for public viewing. So just getting a note also that Board Member Jessica Bielitzik is on as well. So welcome to both of you, and we will continue with the Mentimeter exercise. Thanks.
Thank you, Ben. Say, Ben or Matt, can you give me a sense how many people are logged on? I just want to make sure I'm keeping track of how many people are on the Menti.
I think we're at about 17 people, 17, 18. I see
Okay.
12 hearts.
I see.
I think we have 21 SIG members on the Zoom.
Okay. If anybody on this, I think we have 13 people that are logged on to here right now. And if anybody, oh good, it's starting to jump up, we're at 14. If anybody is unable to do this, you can still certainly enter your responses into the chat. I think we're only going to be asking about 6 or 7 questions, so this shouldn't take too long. I'm going to give folks just another minute or two to get on. We're at 14 right now. And again, if you miss it, just use your smartphone using your browser to go to menti.com. That's listed here at the top of the screen, and the code is listed here. One more thing, as you're answering questions, be sure to click submit, and then we'll advance to the next slide together. Okay, I'm going to go to the first slide. So this is more a slide just to make sure that we can test the system with everybody. Please add your name. Just enter your name and click submit. Great, it's working. Thanks, everyone.
Is it Mentimeter? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think I can hear people trying to get on. So if you look at the top of the screen, it's just www.menti.com. And the code is printed right beside it here. 39804489.
39804489.
Okay, great.
Just for question and answer?
Yeah, we're going to ask a few questions.
Short answers are recommended.
Okay, I'm going to advance to the first question. So during the public virtual forum, we heard questions, or we heard about delays associated with the railroad crossing. So we're asking you all to please rank the intersections that present the greatest concerns. And so what you can do is just click and drag around, or click and select how you would rank each of these. After you've ranked them, you could drag them around, so you don't have to be set with the first response, but we're asking for you to rank the intersections below that present the greatest concerns to you. And if there's a location that you think is a concern that isn't shown up on this list, keep it in mind because that will be the next slide activity. But so far it seems like Old McHenry and Quentin and Old McHenry and Midlothian are the ones of greatest concern. And these two intersections at the top two seem to be in keeping with what we heard during the virtual mapping tool as well. Everyone get their responses in? We'll go to the next one.
Yes.
Okay. So in addition, so it looks like Old McHenry Road and Quentin Road and the Old McHenry Road, Midlothian Road are the ones that present the greatest concern about delays associated with the railroad crossing. As far as other areas, this is open-ended, but beyond those intersections and those areas that are listed below, please enter into your phone if there's other project areas in this corridor that we should be looking at. Are there other spaces that you consider to be hotspots or problem areas that we should be delving into as we start design? Heather Lane and Quentin Road, that's the good one. Fairfield and White Birch is a death trap. I'd be very curious to know more about that. Lagoon and Old McHenry, Midlothian and March Street. And, you know, as comments are coming in, I'll just kind of reiterate what Matt Smith said earlier. You know, back before we were doing things in the context sensitive way, you know, there were sort of formulas to do this sort of thing, but having your input here really helps us kind of laser in on areas that are important to you all. So this is really very helpful. Railroad tracks on Gilmer turning into Old McHenry from residences north or south. That's really helpful. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to keep going here. This next question is asking about bike and pedestrian uses. And so we heard the need to make this corridor more bike and pedestrian friendly. Here we're asking you to select your top 3 biking and walking destinations on the corridor. And we understand that not every single destination is listed here. And so if you have one that's not listed here, keep it in mind and we will give you a chance to list it on the next slide. But the destinations that we have down here are the St. Matthew Church and School, Middle School North and Spencer Loomis Elementary, Quentin Baptist Church and Christian School, Lake Zurich High School, the YMCA, the Hawthorne Woods Community Park, Cuba Marsh Forest Reserve, which seems interesting. We had been alerted to Cuba Marsh Forest Reserve as being a destination during the virtual public forum. So helpful for us to kind of understand where these things fall on people's radar. So it looks like the YMCA, Hawthorne Woods Community Park, and the high school are ranking highest. And what this does also is this helps us plan for where pedestrian facilities should be prioritized. Okay, thank you, and keep going. So beyond that list that we just came away from, are there any other walking or biking destinations in the corridor that we should be reviewing or thinking about further? You can list them here. Oh, the Aquatic Center, that's a great one. Thank you. I imagine lots of people would want to walk to or bike to there. Quentin Road from 22 to the Hawthorne Woods Community Park. Yeah, that's a great comment. I bike and run through the area and don't stop. So it's more of a throughway. Hawthorne Woods Village Hall. Another comment has come through that someone is uses this as a throughway. So I think that's really helpful because that's something that we're going to want to think about. You know, how does this place get used, not just for cars, but also for bikes and runners and walkers? Aquatic Center, Gilmer and Midlothian businesses. That's helpful too. Okay, I think we're getting close to the end here. Let me get to the next one. So as the landscape architect on the team, also I selfishly am looking for character and identity types of features that we can think about as we plan for aesthetic improvements as we get further down into design. But this question is about the character of the corridor. So what characteristics about the corridor are special and should be protected? Country feel, yes. Rural feel, trees and nature. You know, we agree that, you know, whatever the final design should look like, we want to make sure that it looks like it's something that belongs to this area, not necessarily something you'd find in an urban area, for instance. So this is very helpful. Historic buildings, fields, wildlife, farming and horses. There are some really wonderful old barn buildings in the area that we can definitely draw inspiration from. Open spaces. Not seeing an overpass. That's certainly not something that's out there today. That's correct. Forest Lake, low profile, something that kind of accentuates the horizon. Open space, trees, and wildlife seem to be hot topics. Intentional design. I really like that. Yes, this should be intentional. Thank you. This is so helpful. All right, we're going to go to the next one in the interest of time. What other issues or concerns should we be looking into? Anything else that's on your mind that we can think about as we kind of get further into the breakout groups, the next activity? Avoid too much train traffic for us rather than not making another Route 12. Longevity of the project. Noise considerations, train noise. These are all good comments. Speed and safety. I imagine this means speed of cars. Protecting traffic flow, especially while buses are on the road with our students. How the church in Hawthorne Gardens is going to get out on Old McHenry. That is certainly something that we need to be looking into further. The health of Forest Lake, how water quality coming into the lake and how to keep it clean. These are really helpful. Reducing bottlenecks in the area. It's a great comment. Okay. I know we have other activities, and so I don't want to, I would love to keep hearing more, and I think we'll hear more as we get into our breakout groups. But I think this is the last slide. Let me see if there's another one. This is the last slide. Thank you. We really appreciate you all taking the time to give us your inputs and to participate in the activity. So again, how are we going to use the info? We're going to be including all the responses in our meeting summary, of course. We're going to be using your inputs to help guide the planning, especially to tell us where to be investigating further. And our next activity will be a breakout room where the groups can delve into these things further. At this time, I am going to quit sharing my screen. I'm going to save all the results. We'll share them all with you. And thank you again. I'm going to turn it back to Ben.
Yes, thank you, Jody. So at this time, we are going to break for a short 5 minutes or so. Keep your screens on. We're going to keep the meeting open. Just mute yourself and turn your screen off if you want. I've got 2:49 right now on my clock. So let's go 2:55, and we'll come back and we'll pick it up when we come back. So as Jody mentioned, our next activity is breaking up into small groups. You all will have an opportunity to discuss amongst yourselves some of the key issues, and you'll be able to expound upon some of the things that you just talked about in our last activity. So everybody take a break, and we'll be back in a couple minutes. Thanks. Okay, I've got 2:55. Let's just give everyone about 30 seconds or so to get back to their computers, and we'll continue with the meeting. Okay, I think at this time we'll continue with our presentation and get into our next activity. What we'd like to do at this point is hear more from you. This is going to be a small group exercise here that we've organized, that we really want to hear from you what more about the project needs and issues that are on your mind. Maybe this is the first time you've really had a chance to let the information on this project sink in. So, you know, obviously, the subsequent meetings that we hold with you will give another opportunity for you to provide the feedback. But just as a beginning point, let's see where everyone's thoughts are at. We'd like to get into discussing specific goals and objectives for each of the two corridors here. What we'd like to do is spend about 25 minutes in the small groups discussing these. These discussions will be led by members from the Old McHenry crossing staff. And then after the 25 minutes is up, we'll come back to the main group and report out what was discussed. Zoom has got this pretty cool feature if you've never experienced it, with these breakout rooms. So it'll create a separate meeting within a meeting that that is comprised of the three groups that you see here on your screen. So everybody's cool with that. We'll get going on our next activity here, and I have control of the breakout room. So click that. What will happen is at the top of the screen, there will be a 25-minute timer. So you'll all have an idea of when the discussion will need to start wrapping up. Some of us that aren't in these rooms will be jumping in and out, maybe just to listen in a little bit. And then as we get closer to 25 minutes, I'll jump in and give you like maybe a 5-minute warning. And then at the end of the 25 minutes, there will be the rooms will start to close, but there will be a 60-second timer that you'll all see on the screen that will give you a sufficient warning to wrap up your discussion. And then, you know, we'll get back into the main group and do a quick 15-minute recap. All right, so I'm going to click the button here, and we'll all be whisked away into these breakout rooms. Here we go. We're still filtering back in. We'll just give another minute or so before we move on. Great. So at this time, we want to spend about 15 minutes or so recapping what you all just talked about. And I'm sure that there were things that are on all of your minds that maybe you didn't get a chance to talk about. Just wanted to make sure that you all know that you will have a chance to share your thoughts and ask questions. So in the interest of time at this point, I think what we'll do is have each facilitator just give a quick 5-minute or so recap summary of what your groups discussed. And we'll start with group one. Matt and Gabby.
All right, thanks, Ben. Gabby, can you share on the screen our note sheet?
Are you able to see it?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so our group, we had a really nice discussion about various different subjects here. From a safety perspective, access for emergency vehicles, access to churches and schools, specifically with St. Matthew's, that it's very delicate or very, at times difficult to get in and out at St. Matthew's and at Hawthorne, at the Garden Center, excuse me, that really the peak periods, at least for the school and the church, often match up with the peak periods on the road as well. And that can cause some safety concerns. Had a good discussion about traffic signal timing and coordination, a feeling that the signals aren't really working very well together. And just how difficult it is when the train gate goes down. It was Ryan May that was talking about it can take him an hour and 15 minutes to get from his home to Deerfield for work if he gets stopped by a train. I wanted to circle back. There was a question that came up about publicize, would railroad ever publicize or have on their app when their trains are coming? And I didn't get a chance to answer that question, but what we've heard from the CN is that they do not share that information. That is their private business information. That's how they run their business, is to keep that information private. We all know that the train usage has increased over the years. We did some train counts. We saw about 17 to 20 trains any day, a lot overnight or off peak hours, but there's still some during the peak periods. But they will not publicize with anybody about what their schedules are, because that's their business. Erica Frabel put in a good word for drainage, that our project team has met with the village, and we have talked about various drainage issues at different parts of the corridor. So we wanted to put that in. Nothing quite on environmental traffic congestion. We talked about, I think it was Paul Smith that brought up just the difficulty it is try to get from one neighbor to the other without having to get in your car. Or not even just getting in your car, but having to go back out on the main routes. So connectivity between communities, whether that's with bike paths or with roadway connections. From a non-motorized perspective, Gabby, can you scroll down a little bit? So, oh yeah, so
it starts here and then goes to the second page.
Perfect, thank you. So we had Dean Romano from the school district with us, just reinforcing that the residents or students within a mile and a half don't have access to buses. So those students either walk or ride bikes or get dropped off by their parents and vehicles. We got into a good discussion about roundabouts, which I think I glossed over that. Yeah, roundabouts. So Dr. Romano brought up just the challenges that he was not familiar with buses being able to work through roundabouts. So we talked about that a little bit. I mentioned the truck apron that surrounds the roundabout as an area for making it easier for larger vehicles to navigate through a roundabout. I asked a question. We kind of got into the roundabout thing, and I shared that in the virtual forum. I feel like we got some negative feedback about roundabouts. Our group was more willing to consider them. I will mention though that I think it was Mark, as a avid runner, did have a lot of concerns about what it's like for a pedestrian to navigate a roundabout and just the number of conflict points. No vehicles stop at a roundabout. It's only yield control, so can make it a little more difficult for peds or bicyclists. And then Patrice mentioned just the walkability of the area, that with Community Park being on the north side of Old McHenry Road, and she lives in Heather Highlands to the south, just how many people park in her neighborhood, park in their grass, and are trying to walk across Old McHenry Road to get to different events. So that's an important consideration to think about. And then to wrap up, because I don't want to hog all the time here, a question about utilities, about relocating underground as a way to kind of improve the view shed of the area and just get them out of the way. So kind of shared with, that was a comment from Doug, just shared that's something we'll be looking at in the future. Certainly it's something that we have to get some participation on from both Lake County and also the private utility companies. So it's something to be considered in the future. Gabby, is there anything I missed or anything else we should highlight?
I mean, I thought it was interesting when we talked about the pedestrian tunnel that was addressed about maybe underneath Fairfield or something like that, and how currently they work in various forest preserves.
Yep. So anything else from our group that they want to share before we move on? I don't want to make sure it's not just our comments, but it's your comments.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So
Nothing,
we
well,
will
thank you, Matt.
surrender. Sure.
Yep. So yeah, really great to hear all that feedback. Let's get into the second group here. I'll turn it over to Matt Huffman and Pete Nyes to give a recap there.
Great. Thanks, Ben and Matt. Great. So I think we had a good discussion. Pete, I don't know if you want to share a screen. We had obviously some of the same things that Matt mentioned. We broke up our group. We had a little bit more, our group was a little bit more heavy on Quentin Road. We had just a little bit more people that were along Quentin Road, but we had kind of tried to break things up between Old McHenry and Quentin a little bit. Safety is a big concern. I know, with some of the school church, Quentin Road Baptist, accessibility in and out, being able to get buses, students, families, and how that interacts in the peak rush hour. I think, Matt, you had the same comment in your group. They said that, the backups when the train gates are down can go well past Quentin Baptist Church, all the way through Highland, past Highland. And that's all backed up when the gates are down, can get that bad. So that affects accessibility getting in and out of the church and school. And they have, I know at that site, correct me if I'm wrong, but stuff going on all week long, weekends, weekdays, all times of day. So that was a big one there, safety and the backups. Transportation, I think, the Highland Avenue intersection, from the Forest Lake perspective, Mr. Greg Dreel, who's with the Forest Lake Community Association, mentioned accessibility in and out of Forest Lake. Highland's obviously the primary point along, Quentin Road. That's where a lot of the traffic is focused from the neighborhood and the community there. On the drainage side of things, we didn't have a lot of drainage discussion, but overall, kind of in between drainage and environmental is water quality and the effects of, a lot of the water here drains to Forest Lake. So concern about, handling it and addressing that as part of the project is a big goal and objective. Wetland mitigations and impacts to environmental. We have Lake County SMC with Mr. Philip Ruiz was talking a little bit about wetlands and mitigating those wetlands. If we have, added pavement, providing detention for that, if we add impervious surface, so where water can't go through, to mitigate any potential flooding, we don't want to make things worse. Overall, there's not a lot of major waterways or drainage features. It's a lot of more minor culverts that cross the roadway. So we would obviously want to address those as part of the project. Traffic congestion. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, just wanted to see if you could explain what Lake County SMC stands for and what they do.
Oh, great. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I apologize for that. Lake County Stormwater Management Commission. So they're a county agency. And I know Mr. Philip Ruiz, his microphone isn't working, so I'll speak. He submitted his comments via chat. So I'll try and speak on behalf of him, and feel free to type something in the chat if I speak incorrectly there. But they are the Stormwater Management Commission. So they will have a part in this project in reviewing, kind of the drainage aspects of this project. So the proposed improvement, what is required per county ordinance. So the roadway, Lake County DOT has to follow the same rule, a set of rules set out by the Stormwater Management Ordinance by Lake County. So part of that is looking at floodplain if we have that in the area, but a lot of drainage, it's all water related stuff and how we handle that. So they'll have a role in reviewing and providing input on the actual design and permitting of the project. They also, I mentioned wetlands. They're involved in the wetland determination of the project, and they have responsibility and jurisdiction over some wetlands that are isolated. Non-isolated wetlands are regulated by the Army Corps of Engineers. So we're getting into the little nuts and bolts here, but generally speaking, that's how Lake County Stormwater Management Commission kind of fits into the picture here. So they're a stakeholder in the project and will be involved throughout phase one, design and construction of the project. So thanks, Ben, for stopping me there. And feel free, group, if I'm misspeaking at all or miss anything, please chime in. So water quality and environmental were a key aspect. I think, another comment and concern was, maintaining the feel and the look, the effect of potential widening and how that would change Quentin Road. The focus was on Quentin there with that comment. So that was a concern of maintaining the feel. So that kind of gets into the other key considerations. We had a lot of conversations, so I got to probably type a few things in here to fill in. I have a lot of notes that I took as well. Pete was typing away here. But traffic congestion was a primary focus of our group, and overall bottlenecks, just caused by the gates, the railroad gates down, and effects of those congestion, those backups on accessibility to residential as well as commercial towards the southern end. We have Lake Zurich down there. So we had, discussed a little bit of the Illinois 22 and Quentin Road intersection is a bit congested. And I think it's important to note too that Illinois Route 22 is an IDOT roadway, and that they are currently studying that corridor for improvements, the Illinois 22 corridor. Other than that, I think the bicycle non-motorized accommodations, making those connections was a big focus of our group as well. And just not for those walkers and bikers, but also for the experienced cyclists, and being able to, I think there was comments that people see a lot of cyclists on the road, and typically those are the types of, they'll stay on the road. They're not going to ride on a separate side path. So being able to accommodate them on the roadway and minimizing conflicts was a common concern and a goal and objective, as well as being able to accommodate them and those users of the roadway. Other than that, I think that's it. I don't want to take too much time here, but if anyone else, if I missed anything from our group discussion, please feel free to chime in right now. Great. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you, Matt. All right, let's move on to group 3. Chuck and Matt Sis. Let's hear what you had to talk about.
Hey, thanks, Ben. Yeah, you're going to hear a lot of repeat comments from our group, but all important. So a lot of what we heard from the safety standpoint is we have John Kelly with us from the fire department. He said that there's a lot of poor lines of sights at the intersection, and it's important that we have preemption at all the intersections and protection for pedestrians. In addition to that, we have a couple comments about trains during rush hour and at all times causing delays for safety vehicles, and concern for during shift changes when we have police officers both on one side of the track. How do you get to the others when there are gates down? And in addition to that, we had some comments about misuse of turn lanes or people thinking others are turning because of high speeds. So there's a lot of close calls with, especially in the garden center close to Quentin there, where people are turning into the garden center when the person behind them thinks they're turning onto Quentin Road. We also did have roundabouts come up in our group, noting that they might be better from a traffic standpoint, but they also take up a lot of space. So you have to be cognizant about losing trees and lands for the residents. And in terms of Quentin Road, a lot of concern about the tight corridor and how are you going to fit anything more than what's there now through that corridor without impacts to the surrounding area. From a drainage standpoint, Mr. Cuck brought up that about 15 years ago, there was improvements along Old McHenry where they actually put a large pipe in the ground in front of his property, which caused public water, Aqua Illinois, to actually be on Hawthorne Gardens property because there's no room within the public right of way. From an environmental aspect, kind of also crosses over into quality of life. All the residents moved here because they like what was here. There's all sorts of wildlife. They all have a lot of land and they don't want, I thought this was a good comment, they don't want a cement city. And then moving on to traffic congestion and access, kind of concerns about church members and garden customers accessing the properties when or if there is an elevation change to Old McHenry Road, and also how do users get to the YMCA. And I thought an interesting thing that was brought up was Old McHenry Road is currently closed, and Mr. Sabo noticed that traffic really isn't any worse now with Old McHenry closed along Quentin. There's only a noticeable backup from southbound to eastbound 22 on Quentin Road. And more back on that quality of life and maintaining that country and urban lifestyle along Quentin Road. And any widening is gonna ruin that country feel that is currently there. Mr. Lane brought up that, or I'm sorry, Dr. Lane brought up that it's different north of 22 than it is south of 22, because south of 22 there never was that more rural country feel, because it was all farmland. There weren't people living along the road, so there's nobody there to speak for what it used to be like. And then there was a lot of, just like in all the other groups, a lot of focus on non-motorized travel. Right now along Old McHenry, there's a very narrow gravel walkway that makes it very dangerous and difficult to navigate as a pedestrian. I can't remember, up at Midlothian in March, there's no pedestrian accommodations. There was someone up there who has kids right now, and they don't feel comfortable letting them out to go to other neighborhoods without a parent being with them. And again, like other groups, there's a lot of people noticing incidents between bicyclists and traffic. And then there was one comment about hoping that there are open lands along the corridor, to hope that the land would be taken from open lands versus homeowners. And if there's anything that I missed, Chuck or anybody else in our group, please feel free to speak up.
I think that's good.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Thanks everyone for participating in that. I really feel like we're getting a lot of good feedback, and we're looking forward to getting more. We really want to understand your point of view on the key issues of this project. So at this time, just got a little bit more information here to share with you, and we're going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to throw it over to Mike Makovic with Christopher Burke to introduce a concept about the purpose and need and what that entails. So Mike, take it away.
Thanks, Ben. And thanks everyone for all your participation in the workshop. That's all great information. So looking ahead, as you may recall, we showed on a prior project schedule for phase one of the key upfront parts of that federal project development process, or the NEPA process, includes defining what the proposed action is, where it is, and why it's necessary. That what, where, and why is what we refer to as the project purpose and need statement. The purpose and need statement is a formal NEPA document that we're in the process of preparing now. We gather all that information up front and do some analysis, and that's what we use to generate that statement. And we'll be sharing that with you at the February meeting. It will also be formally reviewed, submitted to and reviewed by IDOT and the Federal Highway Administration. But before we do that, we'll be discussing it with you in February. Also in February, we can discuss further the project development process, but if you wanted to learn more about that and what NEPA is and that overall process, at the bottom of the screen there, you will see a link to an FHWA website. They have a bunch of really informative videos on that website that are our videos. So they walk you through the process, walk you through what purpose and need is and what a federal categorical exclusion is and the like. And they're very informative. So if you have the time, I would recommend looking in on those videos. Otherwise, the key elements of the purpose and need statement, it will really summarize the project history from a long-range planning perspective. How long has this part of Lake County been looked at from a transportation perspective? What are the anticipated socioeconomic and travel demand trends out to the year 2050, which is the current federal planning horizon? What's the project setting? We heard a lot of that today. And we'll look at not only existing transportation performance and conditions, but we'll also look at what we call the no build condition. Meaning if no improvements are implemented by the year 2050, how will that transportation performance compare to existing conditions? So all that gets assembled into the technical purpose and need document. And we'll also include stakeholder input, a lot of that we heard at the virtual forum and of course today. The purpose and need statement sets the stage for developing and evaluating alternatives and relative to not only performance, but also potential impacts. In order for an alternative to be considered in detail, it has to be shown that it meets the purpose and need statement. So it really
over to Matt Smith here, but before I do, just wanted to remind everyone, if anything came up in your mind during this presentation that that you wanted to ask us that you didn't get a chance to in the breakout room, please go ahead and put that question into the chat to Alyssa Kidd. And also, if you wish to make a comment to the group, please let us know that too. So we'll have an opportunity for you to do that after this last slide. So I will throw it back over to Matt.
All right, thanks, Ben. Sorry, I was muted there. Okay, so what we have shown here on the screen is a more detailed look at our schedule. As we've talked about, project surveys and data compilation is what we've been doing right now, and then moving next into the purpose and need development. And then we are looking at February of next year for SIG meeting number 2. And then we'll be looking to try to stay on a 3-month schedule from there to SIG meeting number 3 and SIG meeting number 4. So imagine we'll be meeting on that 3-month schedule, probably looking at sticking with these Thursday afternoon timeframes. And as I mentioned earlier, we will be playing it by ear as to whether we'll stick with the virtual format or be meeting in person. We will have some type of public information meeting next summer. Same kind of deal. We'll look to see if that's going to be in person or another virtual thing. I did want to note that we will be doing some cultural surveys in the month of December around the project area. This will involve some people from our staff taking pictures of homes that are of age, I will say. I don't want to call anything old, but homes that are potentially historic, not just homes, but also historic structures. We will be sending letters out to all of those people who we'll be taking pictures from. So there'll be nothing anybody needs to do for that. We'll just have some staff members on people's property taking pictures of what the houses are so we can properly document them from a historic perspective. So if you're one of those people, you will get a letter, so you'll get some more information about that. So that's something that'll be coming up in December. Okay, next slide. So as Ben mentioned, we kind of split this up into 2 pieces here. We're going to have some comments if everybody would like to make a comment, and then we'll also do some Q&A. So at this point, I will pause and see, Ben, if we have anybody that's sent a message to Alyssa that they'd like to make a public comment. I'm calling public comment, excuse me, a SIG member comment.
Yeah, not yet, Matt. But if you do want to make a comment, just raise your hand in the chat, and I'll call on you here. If you don't know how to do that, if somebody was asking me, I wouldn't know where to go either. So I believe it's in the reaction.
Like Dean figured it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had too many of these meetings.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just wanted to mention, because I've had so many of these meetings, this is a very flexible opportunity for us to participate when you're combining commute time to get to meetings. So I actually appreciate this. It allows us to stay focused, and it's actually a lot easier to read than if you put it up on a screen and try and follow along there too. So just my 2 cents with regards to virtual meetings, other options.
Mm-hmm. We like options. We also wish we could meet in person. There's a lot more conversations that can happen in person. But again, like as you mentioned, it does give maybe more folks a chance to actually attend when you talk about the flexibility that it provides there. So thank you. Anyone else?
Say we move on to Q&A. And before we do that, I wanted to add real quickly, that it is 3:52. So if there is a lot of questions, this group or the OMX team group will be happy to stay here a little bit longer if people do have questions. And we do extend past 4. We understand that some people might have a hard stop at 4. So that's another benefit of having this recorded, so you can circle back later and see what was discussed.
Erica.
Hey there. Can you guys explain a little bit the process of how we got to where we are today? I know you said that this project was in the Lake County's 2050 plan, I think you said, but was that for the grade separation or the whole corridor? I know there's some funding that's coming in from CN, or maybe not CN, but for the grade separation, and just how that plays into it. Maybe just a quick recap of how all this came to be.
Sure, I'd be happy to. The long range 2040 plan is what was referenced earlier. Matt Smith, I'll let you expound on the rest of that and how we got to where we are today.
Sure, and I will do my best, and if any others on our team want to add to it, please do. So yeah, it was a 2040 plan that Lake County developed back in 2011 through 2014 timeframe. Was part of a process that evaluated projects all around the county, and this location was flagged as a potential grade separation, as well as looking at potential widening improvements along both Old McHenry and Quentin Road. There were a number of projects included in that plan, and some of those projects happen within the 2040 time period, and some of them don't. So this was referenced at that time, and I guess I would kind of defer to any of the Lake County partners here on the call to add some more information about how that kind of evolved from there. From a funding perspective, Lake County Division of Transportation has, intends to and already has been working many angles to try to secure funding for this project. And to date, it has received $12 million from the Illinois Commerce Commission. The Illinois Commerce Commission, or ICC, has a program for funding the removal of at-grade rail crossings. And that currently that program caps out at $12 million. And what you all will learn here in the next few months is that $12 million is not enough to create a new grade separated crossing, but it certainly helps. So there is $12 million that's been identified or kind of targeted in for this project. And that is all the funding that's been secured so far. The work that this team will be doing over the next few years during the phase 1 process will also include some work to try to secure additional funding from other sources. I'm sure you've all followed along in the news or seen some information about the new federal transportation bill and what that means to the state of Illinois. It's a great time to be doing a project like this, assuming we result in a conclusion of moving forward with a build alternative of some sort, that there will be some new funding sources that hopefully this project will be able to tie into. Anybody from Lake County wanted to add anything else, or did I do okay with that?
No, you did good, Matt. I don't know. I don't see myself on the video. You see myself here?
Yep.
On the screen? Okay, great. Yeah, I think you did a great job. I just want to add a couple points is that on our 2040 plan, the bike path through this corridor and up along Quentin Road was also included as well. So it was all came out of our 2040 plan. Like Matt said, a lot of those projects in there we plan on getting to throughout the county, but some may not get addressed as part of our annual 5-year program that we put together. But this one is one that came up with the CN trains, one that we hear regularly about. The grade separations are a big topic today, just with the volume of freight trains we see. So we started focusing in on this location because it is a county highway with the CN, and then just the volume of cars, especially on Old McHenry Road, approaching 30,000 cars a day. And then, from the early on maps, just the convergence of all the other regional highways and stuff in the area. So that's kind of what started the project, got into our program, and then looking at Quentin Road and some of the other intersections too, is just taking a comprehensive look at, once this grade separation is considered, how is the traffic going to move around the area safely, and making sure we're looking at mobility of the cars and everything too. So a little bit more than what you hit on there, Matt, in terms of the 2040 plan and kind of how it came into our program. But yeah, any other questions that come up, certainly I'll try to address them.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. And we heard a comment in one of the breakout sessions that that we wanted to bring up here, and that has to deal with Quentin Road, and some of the residents along there may have seen survey crew and some field crew out along Quentin and Old McHenry for that matter. Just wanted to, Matt Huffman, I'm going to throw this to you. We just wanted to address where we're at in the process of the project, and address the concern of the homeowners along Quentin Road and the impact that they may or may not see.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I think, right now we're very, very early on in the project process. Really, data collection is where we're at. And right now we're surveying, we're figuring out where wetlands are at. We're doing topographic survey. We're doing utility survey. We're doing, as Matt mentioned, we're going to be figuring out where where historic properties are at. We've done coordination with the Illinois Department of Transportation, who's as you saw earlier on, a partner in the project for helping do other surveys as well. So right now it's data collection, and over the next few months we'll be compiling all of that. I forgot to mention the biggest one is traffic collection, traffic counts. And our team's been working through a lot of that data. We collected, I don't know, Matt Smith, I think we counted over 30 intersections. We did traffic counts all up and down the corridor. I think those were collected in May of this year. Usually we like to do those when school is in session before summer hits. So we collected that data in May. So we take all that data, and Matt, feel free to chime in here. We've been coordinating with the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning to figure out what to figure out the projections. We don't design a project for the problems that happen today, but what happens into the future. So right now the planning year is 2050. So the planning agency gives us population employment growth projections for that planning year. And from that, they can figure out, well, what does that mean for traffic? And so right now that's what we're doing. We're getting that data from them, and the near term, we're going to be looking at, well, what happens if we do nothing and, there's no improvements made, but traffic continues to grow? What are things going to look like over time here by the year 2050? And that's really what's developed in this purpose and need document that Mike talked about, is if we do nothing, what happens? And that really helps justify, well, do we need to do something or not? And that's where we're at. So right now we don't have an answer or have any alternatives developed. We're figuring out, well, what problems are we trying to solve? That's where we're at right now. So feel free, I don't know, Matt and Ben, Mike, if I missed anything there.
I think that was great. Thanks, Matt. Rob Sabo, see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question. I know we're in phase 1 here, but at what stage does CN Railroad get looped in as a stakeholder, given that they are a private entity and the railroad itself is privately owned? I know there's likely a playbook out there for these types of grade changes, but just out of curiosity, has CN at least been pinged at this point about this project, and are those meetings happening? And will CN be at the table for SIG meetings, or is that happening outside of this group?
Yep, that's a great question. I can handle that one. So obviously the CN is a primary stakeholder in this project, as you can imagine. They are aware of the project, of course. We have had, like really basic discussions with them at this point. There's conversations that we need to have with them to understand what their requirements are going to be, and just get an idea of what they're planning for the future. We're actually it's a good question, and the timing is relevant because we've reached out to them to actually try to set up a meeting with the CN and our project team in the next month or so here. So that coordination will be ongoing throughout phase 1 and will really start to pick up in phase 2 once we get into more detailed engineering.
And hey, Ben, I don't know if you can explain a little bit, kind of the dynamics of the railroad, like who regulates them?
Yeah, great question. So the freight railroads are all regulated by the federal government, U.S. Congress. The railroads answer to them and only them. And in Illinois specifically, the agency that is delegated to overseeing their operations is the Illinois Commerce Commission. And so that group is actually when we talked about the $12 million in funding, it's a funding program through the ICC that was designated for this project already. So if Matt Smith, if you want to add on to that, but I know the village here's a lot of maybe complaints and gripes from the residents about how much train traffic has increased along the railroad, and it has, and we recognize that, and that's the primary reason for this project, really. The village has no legal authority to make the railroad do anything. And so, right or wrong, and as frustrating as it is for Erica, I'm sure, Hubbard Woods and Lake Zurich can't call up the CN and ask them to reduce the number of trains there. So we've got another question in the chat about any projections for the future that the CN has. And that's a question that we have asked of them. We have not received an answer yet, but it's something that we want to know for the development of our purpose and needs statement, to understand, fast forward 10, 20, 30 years, what is the rail traffic going to look like, and how does that play into this project? So hopefully that answers the question. Matt Smith, do you want to add anything to that?
Nope, I think you covered it all. Rob, did we answer your question?
Yeah, that was helpful. Thank you.
Okay, sure. And then Roberto Diaz, I know in the chat you had asked about that future train traffic. So that was our response to that. That is something we want to try to find out so we know what that component is. We will be asking of them, and I know that they've shared that with our team on other projects. So hopefully we will be successful in finding that out.
Thank you.
From Roberto about where can you all view the recording of this meeting, and that we will be making that recording available on our project website. We'll certainly send out an email to the group here when that's ready to go. We'll also prepare a written summary and certainly give you all of the presentation slides that we shared with you today. We'll also send out the Mentimeter results of that exercise and the written summary from the breakout groups. Looks like Erica, you have another question or comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say really quickly, just the Route 22 improvements. I know I had some people call me to ask about the overall project and how the scope of the project isn't looking further out than where it is looking. And IDOT does have plans to widen Route 22 from 83 to Quentin Road to 2 lanes in each direction. So that's 4 lanes. And that's been in their program for a while. It's in their 21-26 proposed highway improvement program. So that is something that's on the books for IDOT. So I just wanted to say that out loud because obviously there's traffic problems up 22 as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if I can add on to that, and thanks for that comment, Erica. Yeah, and that's a good point. IDOT's doing Illinois Route 122. We have some other projects in the area too. As Lake County DOT, we just started an intersection improvement at Gilmer Midlothian. So for those that live around or drive through the area, you've probably started to see that underway this summer. We just finished, as it was mentioned or referenced earlier, we finished the improvements just to the south on Quentin Road as well. So there has been some work done in the area. I just want to also point out though that, you know, we're looking at this study area. We selected it in coordination with IDOT and the FHWA. And it was all based on our 2040 plan, and that 2040 plan and modeling looked at traffic modeling on a regional basis on county highways, state highways throughout the area. And it showed, you know, potential improvements on Quentin Road, the CN Railroad, you know, the stuff that I mentioned earlier. So just important to point out that, you know, maybe moving improvements or the study area around and saying, hey, why don't you look at, you know, different road in the area or something like that. While those improvements on those roads may be necessary too, you know, doesn't certainly mean that that's going to limit our need to do improvements in this study area as well. Just, I mean, it's regional traffic, and it's quite a bit of traffic going through this area. So just wanted to expound upon that, Erica, because I know that you've been hearing some inquiries about that as well. So.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that clarification and further information there, Kevin. All right, anybody else? Any questions or general comments? I know we're past 4 o'clock here, so we do appreciate everybody's patience and participation, of course. Well, seeing no other questions, we certainly invite you to reach out to us after the meeting if anything else comes up. We will communicate with you shortly, most likely next week, with all the summary materials here, and give you information on where you can find that. So thanks again. I hope you all have a great night, and it was great meeting you, and we'll be in touch. Thanks, everyone.